Welcome to the Athlete Insights Podcast, hosted by Yash Pad Day, a podcast focused on letting athletes tell their journeys in their sport. This podcast is presented by Boxed Water. Boxed water is better.
Welcome into another episode of the Athlete Insights Podcast. Today I've got my guest, Coach David Elson. He's the defensive coordinator and the linebackers coach for the Indiana State Sycamores football team. So, Coach Elson, appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a little later in the evening, but I appreciate you taking the time and sitting down with me and chatting with me.
My pleasure, man. It's good to be here. We've been trying to get this done for a while.
I know. It's great to have you and great to reconnect with you, as I was saying off camera.
Yep.
We were both at Ball State back in 2018, 2019 in that time frame.
Yep.
So great to reconnect with you and great to chat with you here. But want to kind of take it back, as I do with all my guests, is kind of talk from the beginning. Is when you think about, I teach sport management and I'm a sport management professor now. And so when you think about sport management and the word sport, when was it that you first fell in love with sport, not just football, but sport in general? At what age would that be, and kind of what kind of drew you to sport?
Well, I was the youngest of six kids, so we got two older brothers and three older sisters, and so we grew up doing sports. Little league baseball, third and fourth grade football was probably CYO football in Indianapolis is what was really the first that I did. But of course, it was because my older brothers were doing it, and but that's what got me going on it and got me pretty much obsessed with for until I was 12 or 13. It was football, baseball, and basketball.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask. Was football kind of the first love, but you answered that there with baseball and basketball as well. Positions wise, what positions in youth football, what position did you play, specifically focusing on football?
Golly,
if I may ask.
I was a quarterback in third and fourth grade, but then I wasn't after that. More just like running back, defensive back all the time.
Running back, defensive back. Nice.
Yep.
Nice. So you got the both offensive side and defensive side, the experience on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
In that regard. And speaking of your high school career, Coach, can you talk about your experience playing football in high school and kind of what you took away from your high school football experience?
Yeah, I went to Cathedral High School in Indianapolis, so it was a great experience. Those coaches, Jim O'Hara, is one of the coaches that probably the first coach that piqued my interest in wanting to be a coach, just because I looked up to him, and he was a role model. He was a mentor. He was an accounting teacher as well. And so that's where I started to kind of get the coaching bug and thought that was, I wanted to be like him.
Yeah.
And, but the experience itself was, there was just a lot of my older brother, Brad, was a class ahead of me. So that was, a good experience. The current head coach of Cathedral, Billy Peoples, was in that class. And, you just always look up to those guys that are ahead of you. Like, one of the stories I've always told is when I was a sophomore, we won the state championship. I had absolutely nothing to do with it. I was on the scout team, and
gotcha.
But a couple of things from it, like I was a sophomore, and all my buddies were sophomores, and we were the scout team, and we took a lot of pride in it.
Yeah,
and we would tape the name of the star player on the back of our jerseys, and and just try to give the best look we could. And a guy named Derek Brownlow was the senior linebacker. He went to Illinois, ended up being their all-time leading tackler at Illinois, and he coaches back at Cathedral now. But he was a captain, and every Friday before a game, school would get out, and it's not like it is now. Everybody was on their own, and so certain guys would get in cars and they'd go to the local fast food restaurant, Hardee's or whatever it was, right around the corner. And there was a guy on our team that didn't play, probably was never going to play.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there and I was doing my own thing, but I watched Derek Brownlow as a senior captain. He went, and this guy was sitting alone outside in the parking lot. Once again, barely even practiced. I mean, he just wasn't very good, wasn't in shape. And Derek Brownlow took him with all his senior buddies to go get something to eat before, whatever that game was. And I just thought, wow, that's a leader. You know what I mean? That's a guy that values teammates, and so little lessons like that you see, and that's the experiences like that say, man, this game is, it's awesome. It brings out a lot of great things in people, and you see those things by examples like Derek in that case. So that's one of the main takeaways is just the power of team and the togetherness of being a part of a team.
Yeah, and high school football is so unique because you talk about the team mentality and the team aspect and the team bonding is so unique nowadays in high school ball versus the collegiate setting with which we'll talk about NIL and transfer portal and all those other things that have been included in that. But high school football to me is super unique in that regard of the way team bonding and stuff occurs on that level. So it's great to hear you kind of talk about that, especially with the leadership stuff as well, that probably has helped you now that you've come into the coaching side of things and the coaching role. So can you talk about, and I'm always interested in understanding, I know you went to Butler University, but can you talk about your recruiting process, how that goes for some of our high
This will
school
be
viewers?
This will be the shortest part of this podcast because I
Okay.
really, I wasn't recruited. I ended up, what I did,
Okay.
it's actually not a bad story, but it's not going to help anybody in recruiting. It
Okay.
might a little bit. It
Yeah.
might. Yeah, I shouldn't say that because there's going to be people that were you're in a situation where you got to find a play, you got to find a home.
Yeah.
You may not be highly recruited. You know what I mean? I wasn't being recruited, and so
Yeah.
but I knew I wanted to play college football, and
Yeah.
I took the initiative and went to Coach O'Hara, who played at the University of Dayton.
Ooh.
And I was like I said, I want to be like him.
Yeah.
Well, he played there. I want to go to Dayton and I want to play.
Yeah.
And so him and his brother helped me. Him and his brother Chuck both went to Dayton. So they helped me get admitted, wrote letters of recommendation, so on and so forth. But I had to go and try out. And back then Dayton was really good in Division III football. And I tried out and didn't make the team. And the tryouts were in a way that I probably wasn't going to make the team because it was about running 40s and different stuff like that, agility, etc. So I just want to get the opportunity to put pads on and be able to play somewhere. And my brother had played at Butler, and so I walked on at Butler the next semester. And the story there, maybe the lesson and all that was, I had to go someplace where the opportunity was there that I could get on the field and show what I could do. That tryout situation, just the way it was, it probably wasn't a good fit for me.
Gotcha.
I wasn't going to wow anybody in shorts and a t-shirt. Wasn't going to wow anybody, period. But to put the pads on and play the game, I thought I'd be able to at least contribute at Butler. And so I walked on and ended up, being a 2-year starter and earning a scholarship. So it worked out. But I would say, the other lesson in the recruiting part of it is there's a spot somewhere for everybody.
Yeah.
And the sooner you realize, hey, I maybe not be a Division I scholarship athlete, the sooner you come to grips with that, the sooner you can start to focus on, all right, what level. You can ask your coaches. You can, I think that's the best thing is ask your high school coaches, well, what level do you think I should be looking at to play? And he may say, hey, Division II, NAIA, whatever it is. I coached a year in NAIA and I had a blast coaching, and those kids had a blast playing.
Yeah.
And so I think it's that self-evaluation or kind of coming to grips with, okay, how good am I?
Yeah.
And where am I going to fit? If I love the game, I got to find what level it is that I fit at.
And that's the key, like you said, is not everybody is a D1 type of guy. There's
exactly.
and it's not a bad, and we were talking off camera. I had Coach Lynch on earlier this week, and he said the same thing, is when he got into D3 at Franklin College, he was saying that, like, he expected the talent level to be lower because it's D3, not D1, but the talent is there. I mean, there's talent at all the levels. It's
No
not
question.
just because, oh, you're D1, like, hey, there's
Yep.
more talented athletes. I know I've was reading an article last week that said like the next great running back at Alabama is made out of from JUCO, like coming out of JUCO
Right.
and stuff. And so
Sure.
like, there's so many different talent levels that like I think a lot of kids feel like if they don't go D1, it's like, oh well, I'm not
Right.
really, but there's so many. It's great to hear that message from you as well, is that so many different levels of talent.
Yep.
And just because you're not D1 doesn't mean that you're not good enough or you're not good
That's
in
right.
that regard. And so that's great to kind of connect and hear about your unique recruiting journey and through that
Hmm.
process. But you were a 3-year letter winner and was part of the 1991 conference title,
Yep.
Butler 92. So it's great. And so, what was when you think about high school football versus your time at Butler, or when you got to Butler and started putting pads on at Butler, what was the biggest difference in the game, the high school game versus the college game? Um,
Oh, I think anywhere you go, now you're everybody that's on a college football team. When
mhm.
I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
when you do the numbers of how many high school players play in college, whatever level,
Hmm.
um, it's it's a small percentage.
Hmm.
And so you realize all those guys that are now that you're playing with in college were one of the best players on their high school team.
Yeah.
And so the competition level, I mean, I think
Mm.
that's the biggest
Yeah.
thing is
Yeah.
you're going against better people at every position,
Yeah.
every single day.
Hmm.
And, it's like anything, the older you get and the level you step up, um, the harder the
Part of it.
competition is.
Yeah.
Um, go from college to pro, it's
Hmm.
good. Everybody's good. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing from high school to college, and I
Yeah.
don't think it matters what division,
Hmm.
because it's all relative to those guys that at the Division II school, they were pretty good at their high school,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so they may have had two Division I guys. Well, that's fine. They're somewhere else. It doesn't matter now that you got to compete with the ones
Folks.
that you're with the school that you're at.
For sure, for sure. And when you think about because obviously you were at Butler and you talk about the competition level being the difference maker, the high school level. You go through your career at Butler and then you end up taking a GA spot at Southern Illinois and start your coaching career. Can you talk about that transition from player to when you had that transition from being a player to getting into
Mhm.
the coaching side?
Yeah, I think going to someplace that wasn't Butler, where I
Hmm.
didn't know any of the players,
Yeah.
that helped. I was a graduate of college, and so I think one of the things people always worry about a guy
Hmm.
coming directly from playing is that gap. Hey, are you still trying to be one of those guys? And that was never really an issue for me. I mean, I kind
Hmm.
of knew I wanted to be a coach, and
Yeah.
there had to be a separation, and so I didn't try to be something I wasn't. I just accepted the role that I was in. Kind of was a dude, did what I was told. Speak when spoken to,
Hmm.
and just worked.
Hmm.
That's the main thing. Is just showed that I was willing to work, um, and I think when players see that from a young coach, a GA,
Yeah.
they say, okay, that guy, he's about the right thing. Maybe he can help me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I mean, you're sincere about trying to help them become better players and better people. And so it was, for whatever reason, I think maybe I was told I was maybe a little bit just more mature
Hmm.
for my age, at an early age. So I was kind of ready for it, I think.
Hmm. And when you look at your coaching journey, you go from Southern Illinois, you spent quite a few years at Western Kentucky. You were the head coach at Western Kentucky. Um, at IU, you go back to high school, New Mexico, Southern Illinois, Western Illinois, Ball State, where we met Marion, Purdue, Wake Forest, and now at Indiana State. Um, can you kind of talk about and you don't have to go through all of your stops, but can you kind of talk about some of the key takeaways, some of the key lessons you learned from some of the stops that you were at coaching wise?
Yeah, I think I reflect back on my 7 years with, working for Jack Harbaugh was probably
Yeah.
the most influential, and I would say of the things that I use and that, who I am
Hmm.
from a coaching perspective.
Hmm.
There's quotes that you like always go back to that.
Hmm.
I learned that when I was with Jack Harbaugh. There's um, just relationship type things,
Hmm.
um, building relationships with players, how you treat players.
Hmm.
I think I definitely, learned the most from him. I was with him the longest.
Yeah.
And, you know, golly, there's so many stories, but just, as a coach,
Hmm.
never taking things personally.
Yeah.
You got to be mentally tough to be in this profession as of
Hmm.
now, as a player and as a coach.
Yeah.
And so, learning how to deal with people, how to deal with how to be
Hmm.
confronted.
Yeah.
Those people skills that go in that. It's an intense game. It
Hmm.
could be coach to player. It could be coach to coach.
Yeah.
There's so many different dynamics that come into it.
Hmm.
But just his love of the game,
Yeah.
um, just that passion. I mean, you know, an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Yeah.
Those things that I think have become nationally kind of known. I was lucky to be exposed to it, you know, early in my career,
Yeah.
and so I just learned all. I think I was just lucky because I learned the right way to be a coach.
Hmm.
That to me is what Jack Harbaugh taught me was the right way and how you treat people, how you treat players, and the game itself
Yeah.
is it's tough and
Yeah.
it's about physicality and it's about
Hmm.
the team.
Hmm.
And so all those things have stuck with me and picked up other things along the way from different coaches,
Yeah.
whether it's an idea, it's a program idea, it's a
Hmm.
recruiting idea,
Yeah.
it's an X and O idea.
Yeah.
But kind of the core of you know the way I am each and every day, I would say goes to those 7 years, working for coach.
Gotcha. And Jack Harbaugh's such a great influential mentor to have. So it's great, like you said, you had him early on in your career to guide you and help you through that process. And
Yep.
I want to talk about as well. You talk about your 7 years at Western Kentucky as the head coach there, and then obviously all these different stops. And
Mm-hmm.
when I, as a professor now, when I did my interviews applying for jobs, they always asked me about a teaching philosophy. Like, what's your teaching philosophy? What do you look most towards as a teacher? And so, want to kind of throw that back to you and ask about kind of your coaching philosophy because coaching is to me teaching
Yeah.
at its core. And so when you
Mm-hmm.
think about your coaching philosophy, what is your coaching philosophy and how has it evolved over your multitude of stops that you've had in your coaching career?
Yeah, I think that's a multi-layered question that I can go a really long time on. I think the
Gotcha.
first thing is it's the old saying, everybody says it, but
Hmm.
you got to mean it.
Yeah.
The students, the players, they don't care how much you know
Yeah.
until they know how much you care. And
Yeah.
so people say that, well, what do you
Yeah.
do about it?
Yeah.
And so all I can tell you is that, like, when I first got hired at Western Kentucky,
Yeah.
I had learned that. I was lucky. My first job as a GA, Sean Watson was the head coach. He's the head
Mm.
coach at Walford now,
Yeah.
but he was a really good mentor and
Yeah.
and talked a lot about building relationships. And um, so, what's the first thing I needed to do? I need to get to know my players.
Yeah.
And so, I scheduled a one-on-one meeting with every one of my players, and spent a good amount of time just told them my story from birth to getting there, and then tell me your story and about your
Mm.
family and about what you've been through, and
Yeah.
that's evolved over the years. As I was lucky to stay at Western Kentucky for so long, I recruited, was part of recruiting all the players, so
Yeah.
I knew them. But
Yeah.
then when you get a new job,
Yeah. Then
you go, well, you don't know anybody,
yeah.
and so it's like, well, how do I recreate recruiting and getting to know them and all that? And so I came up with I called a get to know you questionnaire. when I was at New Mexico State, and I was the defense coordinator, and I had them fill it out, and then we scheduled meetings, and I met with every defensive player, and I've done that everywhere ever since. And it's it's questions like, what's the toughest thing you've been through in your life? Who's the most influential person in your life? It's all the other background stuff. Tell me about your family life, mom, dad, who do I call, if I need to talk to them about you, girlfriend, most significant thing that you've done outside of football, achievement outside of football. What's the most significant thing inside of football? What are the three most important things in your life? All kinds of different things like that. And so that's where it starts. Just a genuine, hey, I want to kind of I want to get to know you. So I can figure out how to coach you and build a relationship and let you know where I've been and what I've been through. And so it all starts there. And then, as you start to teach the game, I've said this for a really long time, like, hey, what do you do for a living? I'm a football coach. Well, what do you really do? I teach football and I teach life. That's what we do. We use the game of football and the lessons it brings to say, hey, this is how this applies to, this is what's going to happen in life. I was thinking earlier when you talked about the recruiting thing. And some kids want to be D1. And they want to be, maybe they just want to be a scholarship, whatever it is. Well, guess what? All us coaches, we want to be at Alabama. We want to be in the SEC and the big, we want to be Power 4. I've been Power 4. Now I'm not. That's like, you were a starter. Now you're not. Okay. You got 3 or 4 Division I scholarship offers. Now you don't. Now they went away. Now all of a sudden all you have is an FCS or whatever. Well, the lesson there is make the best of what you have. And make the big time wherever you're at. And I think that's something that the game teaches you. And I'm getting back to the question about coaching philosophy, teaching philosophy.
100%.
I think that's huge. Just everything that the game teaches. And then when you do get into the actual teaching, I think, being creative in how you present and how the material, like, the scheme is the material. And it goes back to a Jack Harbaugh quote. Repetition is the mother of learning. And so we get better at doing something by doing it. Well, you got a playbook, you got video, you got walkthroughs, you got practice, you got the game. And what I've learned and that I try to, emphasize is every rep counts. Like repetition's mother of learning. Every one of them counts. So every time I look at a playbook page, that's a form of a rep. And so if I'm the coach and I'm presenting the playbook, that rep that he looks at in that playbook had better have some value to it.
100%.
The detail of that diagram and how it's presented and can I learn as much as I possibly can from that? Some kids look at it and no, they can't. Well, maybe it's because of the way it was put together. There's not a lot of good information on there. It's very bland. It doesn't have the details of alignment, what your technique's supposed to be and all that. And so I've just learned and then walkthroughs. Big believe, we all are. I don't think there's any coach out there that wouldn't say walkthroughs are good. It's a rep. Well, how do you make it the best rep? Like we tried, I want to make sure they always have jerseys on. I want to make sure, everybody knows like you're wearing the running backs wear a certain color of a beanie, the receivers wear a certain color, the tight end wears a certain color. So because every rep matters. And so going through a thought process of identifying the formation, identifying who's who, if it's man coverage, if it's whatever. And so you need all those details. Creating a field. That's the other thing. You go out and walk through in a parking lot, spacing is huge in the game. And so where's the hash? Where's the numbers? Where's the sideline? Well, you can't not always going to have the width of a football field to do a walkthrough.
Yeah.
So you just make a mini. I learned that TJ Weiss was the guy I GA'd for, and he was a wide receiver coach. And wide receiver splits and alignments are critical. So we would have a walkthrough in the hotel, and I'd be in. He did it when he was a GA, so he had me do it. I'd be in there putting tape down on the carpet that were the hashes, and then here's the numbers. And so it was the best version of a rep that we could create.
And it's like you said, make the best of what you have and kind of how you can do it.
Yep. So teaching philosophy, you gotta make everything that you put in front of them the best it can possibly be, so they can get a quality rep.
Yeah.
And then the more reps they get, whether it's playbook, whether it's video, all those things, like the angle of the video.
Yeah.
What angle of the video are you watching? Watch from behind when you're a linebacker. I don't think we get a whole lot watching from the side, because that's not where the game's played.
100%.
So from a teaching and coaching philosophy, those are things that I've learned
100%.
that, you just try to, I'm trying to figure out a way to do a video walkthrough here at Indiana State. Just talk to a guy about doing that today, projecting in this north gym where we have a great walkthrough area. We're going to project up, whatever we're installing. Then when we get into practice, we're going to put the video up there, and we'll correct from that. So it's immediate. That's the other thing, immediate correction. That makes a mistake, and you can go fix it right then. Got a better chance of learning.
Yeah.
So,
and it takes me back to when you were talking earlier about how when you were on scout team, like that's, where that mentality starts, is even if you're on scout team, you're still making sure that the team gets the right rep, and you're making sure that every rep counts. Right. And that's, I was thinking about that as you were talking, kind of like how that correlates to your coaching philosophy. And we finished
a walkthrough yesterday, the last play. Yeah. And one of our safeties was like, whoa, wait a minute. What just happened? Yeah. I was looking at the other side, and he was like, that's not right. We didn't do that right or something. So I said, okay, line it back up. Let's take a look. Yeah. Well, we found out the guy ran the route wrong. And so immediately after that, I bring the defense up. There's a lesson. Hey, fellas. Yeah. Every role you have is critical to the success of this team. Yeah. If you have to be the guy over there when we're servicing ourselves, it was all defensive players. It wasn't like an offensive scout team. He was a linebacker. Yeah. It's like, hey, that tells you how important it is for you to read the card and execute that card, so we get so your teammates get a quality rep. Yeah. Well, guess what that means? That's going to help us win. Yeah. And so that role, and most people would look at it and be like, oh man, I'm on the scout team, I'm reading the card. Yeah. Well, that's a life lesson. Attitude. How are you going to look at it? How are you going to respond to that situation? And all of a sudden we got this guy giving precise, great routes. Yeah. Holy cow, man. That guy loves it here. He wants us to win. Let's give him a rep on defense. Yeah. All of a sudden, everything changes. Playing. Yeah. And there you go. You go from being scout team to being starter, just, in that regard. Right. So it's great to see that, and great to kind of hear you expand on that as well. And kind of like I said, I was kind of correlating what you were saying before to kind of how you've evolved in your coaching philosophy. I hadn't thought about the fact that it probably does correlate. I'm pretty passionate about the looks, getting it. It's like, well, I guess when I was a sophomore in high school, somebody taught me that. So there you have it. There you go. So and you spoke about recruiting at Western Kentucky, how you were able to build those relationships as part of your coaching philosophy, teaching philosophy in that regard, of getting to know your players and the recruiting aspect. And nowadays it's gotten a lot, you could say, harder or easier, how you look at it, in that regard. Can you talk about how you have navigated recruiting through the NIL, through the transfer portal, kind of how you kind of go about that, and especially with the recent changes? I don't get it. I don't understand why people think it's so different and such a big. I mean, it's different. I get it. Yeah. But what are you looking for? You determine what type of person you want on your team. Yeah. And if you're willing to get involved with somebody who's all about, coach, how much is it? If that's the first point of reference of the conversation, yeah. If that's what you want, all right, then you're going to get involved, and there's not going to be a relationship. It's going to be transactional. Yeah. You choose whether or not it's transactional. 100%. like as the head coach, the
Yeah.
recruiting coach,
Yeah.
that's my choice.
Hmm.
And if I want to get into a transactional relationship,
Yeah.
that's on me.
Yeah.
But I don't see recruiting really any differently. You're
Okay.
going to build a relationship. If money's involved,
Yeah.
certainly every family you're going to say, well, okay, here's our situation.
Yeah.
And if all things, I think what you always got to do is if all things are even,
Hmm.
have I done the best job of building a relationship? Well, then you should come here. The money's the same,
Yeah.
you know, but once again, what's really important? Is it
Yeah.
people and relationship, or is it the money? Are you going to
Yeah.
go for a little bit more money and the relationship isn't
Yeah.
the same? Now, if
Hmm.
it's double the money, I mean, and that's the other thing where coaches are going to be hypocrites. If
Yeah.
somebody called me tomorrow and said they're going to double my salary, guess what, Coach Mallory? Probably going to go.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
so
Yeah.
somebody called about any head coach and says
Yeah.
we're going to double your salary.
Yeah.
Now, more goes into a job. Obviously, it's got to be the right fit and all that stuff. But
100%.
um,
Yeah.
but it's the same thing. Is it the right
Yeah.
fit?
Yeah.
Is there a relationship?
Yeah.
And then
And I think
if
that's the thing that a lot of kids, at least that I've come in contact with, not just football, but sports, a lot of sports, collegiate sports in general, I think really either fail to understand or don't really in that regard, where I always tell kids don't chase the money, right? Chase the
right,
fit. And
yeah,
I think that's where people get
so,
lost or athletes get lost
yeah,
in that regard of just trying to chase the money,
yeah.
which is great. Like you said, if they double your salary, you go, but then there's other aspects to it too. Just
Yeah.
because somebody's doubling your
Yeah,
salary
I
might
really
not
shouldn't have
be.
said that. I really that's a bad thing. I shouldn't have said it that way.
No, no,
And
no,
that
you're
I mean,
good.
there's a lot of factors that would go into it,
Yeah,
but
but
the large majority of the time, those
I'm
factors are pretty good. If
yeah,
somebody's willing to value like you
value
like
the
that,
thing.
that means
Yeah,
that okay, this is going to be a good fit if they feel
100%
that strongly about me and think that I'm the right guy for them. So,
for sure.
but
Yeah,
it is. I mean,
no,
I'm not. It can be.
I just figured because I know I've talked to other coaches and other athletes, and they've kind of talked about how NILs kind of changed the way that they think through the recruiting process, or they
Oh,
think through that.
absolutely.
And so that's why I figured I
It's a
would kind of
factor. Yeah, money's
get your thoughts on it.
it's a factor. To me,
Yeah,
that's all it is. We just added a factor to it,
100%.
and it still is going to come back to what's the best fit.
Yep.
Part of the fit is maybe for the money. I just think
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that you can complain about it. You can do whatever you want. You just
It is what
like
it
I
is,
said,
and you
make the
got to
best
go
of it.
through it. Yeah,
Make the best of it.
best of it.
That,
Yeah,
that's the
and
hand you've been dealt, and
yeah,
it's a good hand for the players. It's good for
good
in a
for
lot of ways.
yeah,
There's positives and negatives to everything, and
yeah.
there's a lot of positives, and then they're human beings. They're 18 years old, 16,
Hmm.
17 years old.
Yeah,
They got parents that you know.
or yeah, 100%.
I'm not gonna bash any parents, but
Yeah,
like they've
yeah,
got priorities. They've got things that they need. They've got
yeah,
so they're being
100%.
influenced by people. You don't know what they're being influenced by, and so
Yeah,
at the end of the day, for me, if I'm
it.
in that realm, and
Hmm.
let's say I'm recruiting for Purdue or something, and
Yeah,
it's my choice to keep recruiting the kid.
yeah,
If there's a lot of drama and dynamics about money and all
yeah.
that, well,
And
is he going to fit in
that's
our
the
locker?
thing that
Is he going to fit in our locker room?
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing that I'd like to emphasize too, and I love how you talk about that. The relationship piece is so key there. It's the money and all this outside thing is great, but the relationship and the fit. And
Right.
that's my biggest thing is I try to emphasize to my high school athletes that I coach is it's not about, oh, like I'm getting a bag or I'm getting this. Yeah, that's
Yep.
great, but is that going to help you get to where you
Yeah,
want to go?
yeah,
And
that's
that's
just
really the
immaturity.
key,
That's
you
just
know.
not
Yeah.
understanding it yet, and that's fine.
Yeah. And that's,
Everybody's going to realize it at different points in time.
yeah.
In their life, some guys are
Hmm.
going to get to their junior year and say, "Yeah, I've got some money.
Yeah.
I'm not playing much.
Yeah.
I don't feel like the coach really cares
Well,
about me all that much.
hmm.
Maybe I need to go somewhere to play."
Yeah. Yeah.
And where where
In that
I can
regard.
get on the field and play.
Yeah.
And I miss playing.
Yeah.
So, but
That's the key.
the hardest thing that you're dealing with human beings,
Mm-hmm.
and you're dealing with a roster of 105 of them.
Yeah.
So that's a
Yeah.
lot of dynamics. And
Makes
so, like, it wasn't easy before. Recruiting wasn't easy before. It's not ever easy.
yeah.
It's sometimes it is because everything falls in line. It's the
Right.
right fit. And you
Yeah.
got common sense people that say, you know what?
Yeah.
I belong there. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Coaches and then sometimes you got competing schools. I really like them. I really like them. Well, now you got to start comparing
Thinking
and
about
yeah,
where you can go. So yeah,
life. It's a
that's
decision
life.
making process.
Yeah, that's yeah. Anything in life, you always have the option. You always have to make decisions every day. So it's
That's
it's
right.
uh
That's
it,
right.
it's a process. But I like how you put that and talk about the different aspects of that as well. And before we end the podcast, like I mentioned, I started this as a way to help high school
Sure.
athletes and the athletes that I coach. And so wanted to ask you if you have one last piece of advice or one piece of advice for uh, young youth athletes that are trying to get to um, play college football and trying to get to that Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, NAIA, like
Yeah.
get to that level. What's one piece of advice, one overarching piece? I know you've mentioned a couple things with the teaching philosophy and the coaching philosophy
hmm
and all that, but one kind of last overarching piece of advice you would have.
I think being a competitor
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that you got to find which sport you love,
Yep.
but there is value in multi-sport and what it helps you become as an athlete and as a person,
Mm-hmm.
that you're always competing.
Yeah.
I think that we are incredibly hypocritical as coaches when we say, well, why isn't he stronger? Well, it's because he's playing three sports.
Yeah.
And we want him to be a
Yeah.
competitor and we want him
Yeah.
to be multi-sport. We say
Yeah.
that's good for him.
Yeah.
Well, he's not ready to play as a freshman. Well, then don't recruit him,
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think guys got to understand that, like, you're not you're, you're not a ready-made. There's very few ready-made prospects coming out of high school. So play all the sports you can,
Mm-hmm.
compete all you can,
Yeah.
and your time is going to come once you're able to focus on the one thing. But you'll be better because of it.
Yeah.
You'll be better from the multi-sport, from
Mm-hmm.
the competition, from the
Mm-hmm.
different relationships, the different people you're exposed to in different sports.
Yeah.
I do think that helps, and it's just we get so specialized,
Yeah.
and I would avoid specialization until you can't. I
Yeah.
mean, like when you get to college and you get to the pros, all right, you're this.
Yeah.
All right, that's what you are now. But
Yeah.
when you're young, try everything. You know what I mean? Find out what you
Mm-hmm.
love
Yeah.
and then choose that. If that's you got a passion for a certain position or whatever, then once you figure that out, okay. If that's
Mm-hmm.
what you want to focus on, that's your choice. But
100%.
until you do, try as much as you can.
And I have, there's actually, like you mentioned there with, building those relationships and having the benefits of multi-sport. Actually, throughout my doctorate, I had a colleague of mine that researched that. She found that players or people that play or focus on one sport too early by the age of 12, they leads to burnout and issues of burnout with
Exactly
that
right.
one specific sport. So issues of burnout at the teenage years is so critical because of maybe it's
Yeah,
parents, maybe it's other influences that are kind
yeah,
of having kids focus
yeah,
on one sport. But like you mentioned, there's so many benefits to playing those
yeah.
multi-sports and those different sports and building those different relationships.
Yes,
So
mom and
that's great.
dad and whoever they are, they get those dollar signs in their eyes, and they want them to be this
Yeah.
and focus all on this. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's always the best. Sometimes it
Yeah.
works out that way.
Yeah.
There's stories of it working out pretty good that way. So
Yeah.
that's once again, everybody's
Everybody's
story is their
different.
own. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's different.
You gotta figure out your path.
Figure out, yeah, like you said, figure out your goal and where you want to be and kind of how you want to and your fit. So it's
Yep.
great to hear, great insight from your coach. But that's all the time we have for this episode of the Athlete Insights podcast. Again, want to thank Coach Elson for coming on and spending a half hour or so with me, talking with me, sharing his knowledge, his insight, and his expertise. So I appreciate you, Coach Elson, for coming on
I
and spending
appreciate the
time.
opportunity, man. It's always good to talk about these type of things. It's important,
100%.
and
Yeah.
hopefully there's some things that we talked about that can help some people.
Oh, 100%. And that's really, like I said, that's really why I started this, as a way if I can give back and help young athletes, high school, middle school, help them kind of understand what it takes, what they need to be doing, kind of what, where they to get to where they want to go. That's really, really key. So I know we'll help some people definitely
Good.
with some of this stuff. So that's great. And I'll have your social media. I'll have Coach Elson's social media handles on the video, on the description, on Spotify. So you can follow Coach Elson and his journey at Indiana State and beyond as well. And you can follow Coach Elson as well. And then you can follow my podcast on Google Podcast, YouTube, Apple Podcast, pretty much anywhere you get a podcast, you'll find mine. So I appreciate you again, Coach Elson, and we'll see you next time.